Hi, I'm Efka.
And I'm Elaine.
I think Aliens is one of the bad Alien movies.
And I enjoy Status Quo.
We are wrong about a lot of things, but when it comes to picking the year's best board games...
Let's just say that the reason you have heard of Robot Tied to a Sock is because of us.
Without further ado, and further obscure callbacks, here's the year's best board games.
Roll the bad Photoshop.
There are a lot of stupid board games. Frankly, I'm surprised there isn't a BGG top 100 stupid games. But what separates the truly great dunderheads of cardboard is when they're also simultaneously smart. It's probably no surprise then that the 2025 Stupid of the Year goes to Hot Streak. Yes, this is a game that has a fully painted figurine of a hot dog mascot called Hurley, but look, when the game's packed up, it sits in a see-through part of the box displayed for all your friends to observe, along with the other three preposterous personalities. So when you bring Hot Streak to the table, everyone's curiosity is on full tilt. Genius. And then you go, and at that point, it wouldn't be out of the question to expect a round of applause. Despite its looks, Hot Streak is not a game about racing, it's a game about gambling. Also, the rulebook says it's a game about shouting, and that is strictly not a lie. If you don't belt, or yell, or hoot, or at the least holler, you are hot streaking wrong. The gist is that in each of the game's 3 races, you'll make 2 bets. They can be either on one of the game's 4 mascot races, or a side bet that's different each race, like will 2 races be simultaneously just in front of the finish line, or will someone be eliminated? And then the race itself is just on autopilot. One person goes 3, 2, 1 and starts slamming cards onto the table whilst another looks at the results and moves all the races accordingly. As mentioned before, hopefully everyone else is screaming. It might seem like there is very little game, but this is a deception. A while ago, there was a Korean reality game show called The Genius, and I hear there's now a British one called The Traders that's quite similar. The appeal was that the contestants would try to outcompete each other in what was essentially thinly rethemed popular modern board games. There was definitely an episode where they just played werewolf, but called it zombie game. You get the idea. But there was a twist. The rules were purposefully open to be manipulated, and since the contestants played for money, manipulate they did. Hot Streak feels like a game that's tailor-made for that kind of game show. The rules are of digestible complexity, but in between those rules, there's so many things you can finagle. Before making bets, everyone gets to see the racing deck, which is random. So you could be looking at a game where Dangler looks like MVP with a move of 3, a star move, which is even better, and a few 2s thrown in for good measure, whereas Mum just has a fall down and turn around. I'm sorry, Mum, but in this race, you're the queen of the rubbish bin. But before each race, every player gets to put in 1 card into the racing deck secretly, and whilst you can't show your cards to each other, you're free to discuss as much as you like. And between races, cards are dealt back to players, which means again you have secret information about the racing deck that no one else knows, which means that by the time we get to the last race, Dangler's racing cards might be entirely gutted, whereas Mum is now queen. What all of that means is that you can play Hot Streak as is, players just yelling at stupid mascots for immense satisfaction, and it is absolutely stellar at being just that. But if you want to, you can turn Hot Streak into a real event with alliances, betrayals, and the drama of reality TV on your living room table. It has the scope, it has the panache, it is spectacular, it's stupid, it's genius.
It's no secret that the Venn overlap of Lord of the Rings and board games has been eating good lately. One could say cardboard is back on the menu, boys. And after I awarded my GOTY to Lord of the Rings Duel last year, it felt like we'd reached peak LOTR. But then Matt Leacock, lo and behold, designs Fate of the Fellowship, the best Lord of the Rings board game ever released. How dare he? This is no hyperbole. Fate of the Fellowship captures the precise emotional space of Tolkien's much-adored trilogy, centering the experience on cooperation against adversity and, most importantly, on hope. Let me show you what I mean. Fate of the Fellowship is a game in the Pandemic series. If you're new to board games, we don't mean the event, we mean a beloved classic, believe it or not, meaning its design carcass is Pandemic. But not just any Pandemic, specifically Pandemic Fall of Rome, which Leacock co-designed with Paolo Mori. The crucial difference being that Fall of Rome modelled the unpredictable nature of the movement of invading forces. Here, the forces are various shadow troops of Mordor, simply depicted as adorable little soldiers. Red means they're well adjusted. After each player finishes their turn, where, in a perfectly pitched twist on the series, they control not one, but two characters with scope for ridiculously fun combinations, they then reveal cards from the Shadow deck. These could either spawn new troops in Shadow strongholds or move those troops along the various pathways of Middle-earth. And naturally these pathways intersect, meaning that a Shadow army that was en route to Erebor could suddenly switch gears and pivot towards Lorien. Did you forget to leave defence in Lorien? Did Lorien just fall? Mate, you killed Lorien! What is wrong with you? What have you done? This is a system that wants you to account for the improbable and making the smallest things matter. If you leave the Shire undefended, a single red cube could decimate all of your hobbits. And that's your responsibility. This element alone evokes the best of Tolkien's intentions. But trust me, there's so much more to Fate the Fellowship that we simply can't fit into this short segment. For now, just know Lord of the Rings has never shone in cardboard so well.
Mumford & Sons, The Lumineers, Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. In 2026, there's probably as many people who'd admit to enjoying these bands as there are people who'd admit to still enjoying roll and rides. Sometimes fads die, but how do you know when a fad is dead? You don't want to be not fashionable. When is it no longer okay to stomp hay? Well, when one of the progenitors of the fad jumps ship and redefines themselves. I am, of course, talking about Railroad Tiles, the sequel to Railroad Inc. As a longtime lover of this adorable dicey venture, I had very few expectations from Railroad Tiles. It felt too obvious, leaning into the brand, too merchandisey. Imagine my surprise when not only did I completely fall in love with this as well, but I also think it surpassed its little progenitor in every way. Much like in Railroad Inc., you'll build a settlement of connecting roads and railroads. Much like in Railroad Inc., you'll try and avoid pathways that terminate into nothing. Much like in Railroad Inc., there are various scoring objectives to achieve that are much harder to balance than they originally sound. Unlike Railroad Inc., there's no more drawing. You just get the satisfaction of that pastel-colored bucolic landscape you've concocted under extreme duress and suffering pain of the brain. This game ain't cozy, it just looks it. It wants you to bleed. Aw, look at that little cute car you can place. No, dog, this car is costing me 3 points because I couldn't place it on a road with my other 3 cars, because if I did, I would have ruined my town. It's really suboptimal. Stop talking to me about it. Another big change is that there's no more dice. There's just tiles that you draft, meaning that before everyone used the same results to create different layouts. Now you're fighting other players for turn order and figuring out which tiles are high priority to everyone. It feels like a really well-rounded game, reminding me of past hits in the tile laying genre like Cascadia or Harmonies, but more considered and measured and artistically more satisfying. If this doesn't get at least a nod from Spiel des Jahres, I'll eat my YouTube play button. I don't know. I'll eat something. So there, roll and rides are dead, but we can save ourselves the cultural embarrassment by enjoying Railroad Tiles. You know what is still embarrassing? Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. Hooey, that band? did not age well. Imagine if there was a permanent record available to everyone of me and Elaine bopping to it, like being captured in one of their music videos. That would be so bad. Would never live that down.
You know what I can't live down? Coriander. Due to a variation in my OR6A2 gene, I am one of the 17% of Caucasian people with an enhanced sensitivity to unsaturated aldehydes found within the herb, while simultaneously being unable to detect other aromatic chemicals. In other words, this stuff tastes like soap. Envy, for the longest time, of those able to fully partake in Vietnamese, Mexican, Indian, Moroccan, and many other cuisines that employ this herb heavily. A culinary world forever out of my reach. If only I could taste what others are tasting, I could at least glimpse a world forbidden to me. Until Walker's Sensations Lime and Coriander Chutney Flavoured Potato and Gram Flour Snack. Not a sponsor. Yes, this is indeed a coriander flavour crisp, and Defka assures me that it does taste like coriander, and no, to me it does not taste like soap. If you have variations in the OR6A2 gene, then you might be able to finally experience what coriander tastes like via the magic of these crisps, thanks to Walker Snack Foods Limited, a subsidiary of Frito-Lay. This is Railway Boom, a board game designed by Hisashi Hayashi, co-designed and developed by Simone Luciani, artwork by Ian O'Toole, and published by Arclight Games and Cranio Creations SRL. It is an auction game, and I hope I don't have to explain why that specific part is relevant. Yep. Every time Efka extolled the virtues of Ra, modern art, the King's Dilemma and so on, I was sitting behind the camera and biting the inside of my cheek so hard it gave me mouth ulcers, which, ironically, is also something that happens when I accidentally eat coriander. Railway Boom is a game that does not skimp on auctions. The entire game is auctions. There are 4 different auctions, each of which use a different currency. In theory, I should hate this, but I can only manage to adore it. There's something so intimately Eurogame about this entire experience. Even though the backbone of this whole system is outbidding other players, Mr. Hayashi managed to engineer a system that feels like a Eurogame through and through, with satisfying combinatorics and significant train action reminiscent of Cube Rails games. And it's not like the auction part is limp here. One of my favourite mechanisms in the game is the fact that you can convert one resource to another at the cost of 2 to 1 at any time. To make a bid, you have to have enough of the resource that auction asks for as you make the bid, meaning that if an auction requires wood and I don't have it, I have to overspend money which is required in a different auction just to make a bid I might still lose. Brutal. It is then a game of no genre, neither a train game, nor an auction game, nor a Euro game. Something that is whole unto itself and something that is so salaciously appealing. Thank you, Railway Boom. To me, you are the forbidden fruit that I can taste, and I cannot get enough of you. Put that on the cover of the second printing. I dare you.
I think it will surprise absolutely no one what my pick for Game of the Year is, so let's not beat a dead horse. It is The Old King's Crown.
I mean, of course it is, because what a game. What a game. What a game! If you've been living under a rock, or perhaps under a copy of Gloomhaven 2nd edition, you'll have missed me gushing my guts out about how good The Old King's Crown is, which would have been embarrassing if I was the only one doing it, but far from it. It seems critics and audiences are in agreement. To quote a comment from our review, this game is an absolute slapper. They did not know what they said. The Old King's Crown is a game about playing cards face down to 3 battle areas and then revealing them to trigger a cavalcade of complex and intertwining effects, at the end of which you'll hopefully secure a victory. Subterfuge, feints, and assassinations are all part and parcel here, and if that wasn't enough, there's asymmetric factions to master with splitting pathways of strategy. I simply cannot fit what makes this game special into this tiny segment, but if I had to pick one standout, I would of course have to mention the art. And it's not just that it's so breathtaking, it's that it tells the story of this world in subtler ways than we're used to. And I know in my heart of hearts that to some people watching, picking art as the standout subject is like shooting the game in the foot before the race has begun. But listen, this game is so mechanically rich and dense, from the placement of heralds to stealing kingdom cards to timing of reveal effects. There's just so much going on. It's a work of mechanical excellence, and yet it is still the artwork that towers above it because it is just that much excellenter. If you've not heard of the Old King's Crown yet, I implore you to watch our review. You will not want to miss this game. It is truly the best of the best.
Unlike Efka's pick, there is absolutely nothing unique, innovative, or something we haven't seen before about Galactic Cruise. It is, in fact, very Eurogame in all the ways that Eurogames Eurogame. Galactic Cruise is a game about making rockets, advertising them to tourists, and sending them on a merry adventure. Visit some aliens, get some points. Sell tickets to Zero-G laser tag, also points. On your turn, place a worker to do some actions, which could be, but is not limited to, building rocket, feeding rocket, and making rocket go burp. If you ask me to pick one thing about it that is standout, I honestly would probably just try and sneak away whilst you weren't looking. I mean, sure, it's got great art, but it's not the first one. It's quite involved. I hear there's 1 or 2 other Eurogames that are also complicated, and it's got a quirky theme, would you Adam and Eve it? But there is an unsung quality to Galactic Cruise that I think makes it tower above the rest, and that is ease of play. Hey, I guess I could pick out a standard feature. Who knew? And of course, ease of play would mean little if the rest of the game was bunkum, but that's not something that concerns Galactic Cruise. There's a tremendously satisfying progression through the game as you try to piece a strategy in an absurdist environment. It's the right blend of permissive, but with just enough crunch to create a playground where it is easy to lose yourself. And out of the Euros released this year, this is the only one that I want to go back and play. And I think that does say something. If you want to know more about Galactic Cruise, we already reviewed this game, and I spent an entire week of my life building a giant cardboard rocket for that video. That is how much I like this game.
Hey, listen. There's no easy way to say this, but Eternal Decks is the best game to come out in 2025, and for now, it's going to be real hard for you to find a copy, so apologies in advance. There's also no easy way to describe Eternal Decks. I'm gonna try my best though. First, I want you to think of cooperative games that ask you to play cards in sequence, like The Mind or The Crew. And now, forget everything I've just said, because whilst the genre is similar, the play experience is very different. Every player in Eternal Decks will have a small deck of cards. Then, one by one, we will start filling up this board, following various restrictions like playing cards in ascending order or in a specific color sequence. The problem is that each card we have in our deck, we can only play once, and if you're ever not able to play a card, which usually happens because you've run out of them, the entire game is bust. But filling up one of the game's rows lets a player reload their deck with new cards with increasingly elaborate numbers, colors, and special abilities. That is just the basics. Eternal Decks takes that premise and runs off to deliver elaborations that border on the absurd with its progressively more bonkers scenarios. And even in its basic mode, the complications it asks to consider are head-spinningly delightful. For example, each time you reload your deck with new cards, you also introduce a new Eternal. Sounds good, right? No. Each Eternal brings a new restriction for the entire table. For example, this one says no one can play ones anymore. And since every player needs to reload their decks and thus introduce more Eternals, these restrictions compound. And in that way, Eternal decks delivers an experience like no other, with lulls and plateaus that weave through your play space in an ever-changing pattern. For once in my life, I feel like it's not silly to say that this game is poetry, because it is. And what delightful presentation that feels so holistic. The daft mysticism, the cloth board, the stark colors, it all links together with unconventional gameplay to deliver a singular, triumphant experience. Okay, now the awkward part. Availability. This is a game from an indie studio from Japan, which means that there's just no easy way to get a copy, and the information on how to get it differs wildly based on where you are in the world. For example, France, you're good, there's stock for you right now. UK, you're screwed, but keep checking Travel Games, it's a website, maybe some copies will appear. US, you can pre-order a copy for a summer release from Portland Games Collective, and so can the rest of the world, but only with a mail forwarding service, which is going to be absurdly expensive. Either way, the thing to do is check BGG forums, which is probably the best way of figuring out how and when and where and when and how it's available in your region at any given time. I am sorry this is so difficult. I know people hate it when we tell them, thing is really cool, but then they can't get the thing. But that's just how board games work. They are complex and expensive things to produce in a niche scene full of people who are looking out for the hot stuff. It is a cursed environment, probably haunted by one of these Eternals. But if there was ever a game worth hunting down, Eternal Decks is it. I've recommended it to so many people, and the response has been unanimously positive. Different shades of positive, obviously, but I've not met a person who disliked this game. There's so much to appreciate here. I hope you get a chance to play it. It is very special, and I suspect we'll be talking about it for a long time. That's it. That's the end of the video. I just want to say two things. 2025, against all odds, was an exceptionally great year for board games, and also abolish ICE.
See you soon.